Welcome back to the NYG Blue Zone. It's your boy Attikis with a rapid recap of the game. San Francisco 34, Giants 24. I gotta say, I'm really disappointed with this game. And going into, before I really get into it, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that every time we drop some content, you're one to be one of the first ones to get notified. But I really want to just start off with saying how disappointed I am with this game, the overall team, the coaching. I think the offense has really put it together. But if I would have said starting off this season that if I would have asked the question, which unit of this football team do you think will be performing adequately, underperforming, or overperforming? I would think that everybody would have agreed and said that the Giants defense, with the improvements that they made in the secondary, on the line, and edge rushers, would see the greatest improvement. The defense, we would have all agreed that that would have been the unit of this team that would have performed best. Here we are, week 9. Giants are now 2-7. And I would dare say that 98% of fans would all agree that the defense is the reason we are 2-7 and not perhaps 5-2 or 4-3. Not the offense, not special teams, but the defense, which coming into this season was probably the strongest unit of our team. But here we are. I just want to go over a couple of numbers that really strengthens this point. San Francisco rushed the ball for 159 yards. They averaged 4.1 yards a carry, which overall isn't too bad. However, when you look at Brian Robinson averaged 10.6 yards per carry. Christian McCaffrey averaged almost 4 yards a carry. 160 yards they gave up, which is an improvement of the 276 yards that they gave up last week against the Eagles. But that's still a significant amount of yardage to give up on the ground. In fact, it would have been much worse, but I don't know why Kyle Shanahan went away from running the ball when he did. But if the 49ers would have continued to just run the ball today, they could have probably ran for well over 200 yards because the Giants' inability to tackle continues. I don't know why consistently we're seeing them trying to hit players, pop them, punch balls out, rip balls, just tackle the runner. Tackle the runner. And the Giants have proven that they can't handle basic football 101 and tackle the person who has the football. And it's so disappointing. When you look at what the Giants were able to do offensively, once again, Jackson Dart looked good. I thought he held the ball on one or two plays a little bit longer than he needed to. But I got to give credit to San Francisco's defense coming into this game, handicapped the way that they were without players. They were still able to affect pressure on the quarterback on a number of different plays. So kudos to them and Robert Saleh for getting those guys ready to perform and perform well. But overall, I think even faced with that pressure, Jackson Dart did a pretty good job moving the ball through the air and with his legs. I think Theo Johnson continues to disappoint. Pinpoint passes that would continue to extend drives and put the Giants in situations where they can score and not punt the ball away. He's becoming unreliable. He's Evan Ingram 2.0. It is extremely irritating that a player with that much talent continues to underperform, particularly in times when you need him to perform and perform well. He did have that touchdown catch to start the game on the first drive of the game, which was nice to see. And if he probably could have been or should have been tackled short of the goal line, but he managed to get it into the end zone. But I counted two big drops in this game where they were clearly well thrown balls, well placed balls, and Theo Johnson just dropped them. Darius Slayton, another big drop. This time in the end zone, perfectly thrown ball. Give credit to the defender for ripping it out, but Darius Slayton, you got to make that play. You got to catch that touchdown. Granted, the Giants were still able to come away with a touchdown. Jackson Dart hit Gunnar Olszewski in the end zone for a 20-plus yard completion, which was great. First reception of the year for Gunnar. Turned out to be a touchdown. However, if Darius Slayton would have made that catch, that reception on the prior play, that might have saved some time on the clock so they could have engineered a comeback, which probably wouldn't happen anyway because, let's face it, the Giants can't tackle anybody anymore. But at least it would have given them another opportunity to perhaps get the ball back with more time on the clock and maybe make it a better game. I do think that the Giants offense stalled at a point. I believe it was the second quarter where the Giants weren't able to put any points on the board. They did miss a field goal. Graham Gano missed a field goal on a Brian Burns continues to impress. He got another sack, a forced fumble. He had, I think, 2 tackles for losses. And that sack forced fumble resulted in what should have, I guess, been called an interception, but the way that they ruled it on the field made it a sack forced fumble and a recovery by Abdul Carter, who was in the right place, right time, and he high pointed that ball, came down with it. And unfortunately, that did not result in points because, like I said, the drive stalled and Graham Gano, I guess he's got a healthy hamstring, somehow missed that field goal attempt. So what could have been a slightly more competitive game turned out to be just another loss for the Giants. It's very disappointing that this team, with the amount of talent that they have, in spite of having so many different injuries and being in every game that they've played, except for maybe last week with the Eagles. But early on in that game, the officiating was so bad that it seemed like it just wasn't going to happen. It is very unfortunate that this team is 2-7. I believe that they are a much better team than 2-7, but they are what their record says they are. I do also feel like I'm really not a fan of firing a coach during the middle of a season because it really signifies that you have given up as an organization in most cases. Some cases it does not. You know, John Harbaugh, the year that the Baltimore Ravens won the Super Bowl, he fired his coordinator, his offensive coordinator during the season. Elevated another coach into that position during that season, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. I am not saying the Giants are in that same type of situation. What I am saying is it is not unheard of for the mindset to not be we're tanking the rest of the season. It's for us to bring some new energy, new life to perhaps improve what is already a really bad defense. So much talent on this defense, and these guys they're not performing at the most basic fundamental places. Tackling, gap control, gap integrity, making sure that you're in the right position. If you're in man, don't touch them after 5 yards. Get yourself in good position when the ball is in the air. And not for nothing, the Giants got away with a defensive pass interference in the end zone where the ball should have been spotted at the 1 yard line. And it did not happen. But the Giants defense has been extremely underwhelming and upsetting. they cannot seem to just master the simple things. And what it does is it forces the offense to come up with solutions to compensate for the deficiencies on the defensive side of the ball. And it's very difficult to do, if not impossible. Like I said, there were a couple of bright spots. I do think that Dexter Lawrence put some more pressure on Nunez. Nunez Roches has been playing much better than he has the first couple of years. I know he's a great locker room guy, but I don't care about that if you're not delivering plays on the field. But this game last game he's been playing a lot better. I think Thibodeau has been very consistent with the amount of the application of pressure that he's putting on these tackles and on the edges. But overall, the defense as a whole, no matter what bright spots they've shown us, because of their inability to stop the run and tackle, they have allowed teams to win games and not got the ball back for the offense to get on the field and perhaps do something. So that's my rapid recap of the game. Very disappointing. I think this was a very winnable game. If we just look at some of the stats, we can see that it's very difficult to be on the losing side of the equation when you've got a quarterback who threw for 72. He completed 72.7% of his passes, almost 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, a QBR of 107, ran for another 56 and another touchdown. Your quarterback gave you 3 touchdowns in this game and played a very efficient form of football while missing key pieces on his offense. Also lost his center during the game to some form of lower leg injury. Maybe it was a shin or something like that. But I really didn't think that was going to matter too much because Schlottman played well. Illuminor wasn't out there, though, so I wasn't really sure, but I thought Mbo would play well, and he did. But just an overall underwhelming, disappointing performance once again. Darius Slayton with a big drop, and he played a very efficient game. I thought he played well up until that point. He had 1 drop, but I think that dart was off on a couple of his passes, but we can live with that, right? But that big drop in the end zone was disappointing. Wan'Dale Robinson, I thought at times was trying to do too much, and I think he realized that and started catching the ball and just turning and going upfield. I thought that Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Devin Singletary, they played well in the running game. They picked up different blitzes when they were coming, so they were good in pass pro. I thought they found holes where they needed to. I thought they moved the ball well. They played an efficient game. There were no turnovers by the Giants. Graham Gano, like I said earlier, he missed a field goal. Very disappointing. I just think we just suck at the PAT field goal game. We're just not good in that regard. For some reason, we've been hexed in that regard. So, but again, overall, offensively, I don't have a lot of things that I can complain about. Defensively, Brian Burns continues to impress. Like I said, Nunez Roches, I think he's playing well. Dexter Lawrence was a little bit better in pressures, but he still has not recorded his first sack of the year. Tackling continues to be a huge problem. I did think it was interesting that Jalen Hyatt was in on special teams, returning punts and kicks. Not many punts, actually, mostly kicks, but I thought that was interesting. And because the trade deadline is coming up, and I don't think the Giants are going to be doing anything. They're staying put. So they're going to use him wherever they can use him. He's on the roster. He wasn't a healthy scratch. He was dressed to play. So special teams is maybe where we're going to start seeing him. We also saw Ray McLeod out there too. And I think he had 1 reception today. It wasn't a big deal, but getting him involved in the offense early, now that he is a member of the New York Giants, I think is good because we're deficient at that position. So the 49ers, I thought, coming into this game, Christian McCaffrey was going to do what he does. He's just a very effective football player. He is destined to be in the Hall of Fame. He is consistently delivering positive yardage. Even though at times he will get stopped behind the line, he makes up for it in so many ways. And that 3.8 yards per carry that he had today was definitely impacted by the fact that on a couple of plays, the Giants did tackle him for a loss, but he was gashing the Giants for huge chunks of yards. And hit the yardage that he was able to accumulate after initial contact, it was just egregious. The Giants cannot and have not tackled well. So got to give credit to him. Shanahan, he's just one of the better coaches in this league. For him to be able to get the production he's getting from his offense and his defense, given the amount of injuries that team is dealing with right now, is unbelievable. 34 points they were able to pick up in Giant Stadium against a Giants team who I really thought was going to come up with the win. I mean, going into this game, the 49ers were favored by 2.5. They ended up winning the game by 10 points, and some could say it should have been bigger than that. Some would say it should have been smaller than that, but they got the dub, and they did it. They passed the ball to 9 different receivers. Mac Jones has just been having a career year as a backup who has come in to relieve Brock Purdy, who's out with injury, and he's done it and done it well. So Giants take another loss, 34-24 to the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know what to say about Shane Bowen. Listen, as bad as I think Shane Bowen is as an defensive coordinator, the Giants' tackling has been worse. So one might say, if you're in the Shane Bowen attorney camp, that how you blaming this guy for poor tackling by the players? And another person would say, well, why aren't the players in better position based on your play calling so that you've got gang tackling happening where you don't have one or two guys trying to arm tackle like a Brian Robinson and a Christian McCaffrey? Doesn't matter to me. You need to tackle them. It also, I've been a huge proponent of getting rid of Shane Bowen sooner than later. What do you have to lose at this point? You can't be any worse on the defensive side of the ball by getting rid of him as you are by keeping him. What is the advantage by keeping this man on payroll? I don't understand it. I think that he's been a huge liability for the Giants. Going into the season, we saw really quickly that he was not the guy. We saw that last season. And for some reason, unbeknownst to me, that defies all versions of logic and common sense, Brian Dable decided to retain him as the DC. I think mostly because the position itself, based on Brian Dable's handling with Wink Martindale, was so bad that quality candidates weren't necessarily beating down the door, ringing the bell to become the DC for the New York Football Giants. I think that there was this toxic environment that was created. Partly Brian Dable was to blame. Partly Joe Shane was to blame. Partly what happened with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Maybe even Big Cat. I don't know, but there is something that was funky in the air in New York, and some of the better talent decided they didn't want any part of it. They didn't want to come here to deal with it, to be a part of them trying to figure out who they were. None of that. And here we are, 2-7, once again, with no answer and no idea when we're going to win our next game. I was really excited about this one. It didn't work out. So, here we go. And if you look at the Giants' schedule, Let me bring it up real quick because I was thinking about this earlier. What are they going to do next? And I just don't know. You look at their schedule next week, they've got the Chicago Bears in Chicago. I think that's a very winnable game, the same way I thought this one was. But the way the Giants defense has been playing, I don't know. They've lost 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row. They should have actually, at this point, won 6 games in a row, as far as I'm concerned, but they haven't been able to. And then they have Green Bay, and then they got Detroit, and then they got the New England Patriots. Then they get their bye. Come back from their bye, and they got Washington, Minnesota, Vegas, and Dallas. Whew. I don't know. I'm going to be here no matter what. I'm a New York Football Giants fan. I bleed blue. I'm going to support my boys, whether they are 2-7, 2-15, or 7-2, or 15-2. That they my boys, you know. But I'm gonna call it like I see it too. We got a lot of problems, starting with our defense. We've got a lot of problems on our with our coaching staff. We've got a lot of problems in our secondary, and we have even more problems with tackling. It's sickening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so every time we drop some new content, you're one of the first ones to see it. We're going to do our pregame show where we're going to talk about the Chicago Bears sometime in the next couple of days. But thank you for spending some of your Sunday with us. Much appreciated. Go Giants.
Yeah, a lot of girls probably crying from my old high school. Look, they see me everywhere they go. I probably would too. Look, crossed over to the Jordan man like I'm Michael. Yeah, eating blessings so much I might need lipo. Yeah, tailored for the doves like I'm walking in chucks. Yeah, it's just in this plan, man, I see all y'all shook. Look, knew that I was great ever since I was a rook. Man, all y'all singles making me look good. Okay, praise to the Most High, yeah, that's Jesus. Look, but when it come to this rap thing, I can't lose. Yeah, back-to-back number ones, that's the thing greats do. Yeah, tell them boys that ain't nothing I can't do. It's my year. It's my year.